Star Trek, the greatest TV and film franchise of all time. My continuing mission: to hang out with my friends and talk about it. Explain why we love it. Why certain episodes are just kinda dumb. Weird stuff that we noticed in episodes and, well, more or less just have a good time. To boldly watch what we've probably already watched about 50 times already. Welcome back to Boldly Watch, the show where I sit down with one of my friends, watch an episode of Star Trek, and have a little discussion about it. This time we're talking about a low point in the history of Star Trek The Next Generation, an episode called The Game. I'm here with my friend Matt, and hey Matt, can you figure out why I chose this particular episode?
Could it be because it has something to do with video games?
Yep, and what do we do when we get together most of the time?
Play video games.
Yep. And our episode starts with Riker on shore leave on Risa because, he had to go somewhere now that Starfleet was banned from Argo.
Yeah, and it opens with Riker and some random female flirting, basically pussyfooting around a little bit. She then asks him to try out a game. She says to put the disc into the cone. That's what she said.
Anyway, she says, would you want to play some more?
Yeah, you could go for the achievements or trophies.
And then they cut to the opening credits. And I noticed something for the first time rewatching this episode.
What's that?
That all but two members of the cast go in alphabetical order, except for Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they definitely got top billing in this.
But after that, we cut to Picard doing the whole captain's log thing, telling us that the Enterprise is on its way to the Phoenix Cluster, or so it appears. We don't actually get to see much of it.
They have limited time to complete their mission because they have an emergency on Oceanus 4.
But they're in luck if they can rendezvous with a nearby ship and pick up Wesley Crusher. Oh wait, no, that's bad because that makes it one of those episodes.
Yeah. He has a nice little chat with Chief O'Brien.
And they recap a little bit of the episode before, Disaster, another episode that isn't that great, but it's sort of part of this mini arc they do during season 5 with O'Brien because they're trying to make him a bigger character. And I'll get to why when we discuss more about the episode in a little bit.
As well has a nice subtle reintroduction of Robin Leffler,
who again appears in the previous episode called Darmok, which can and probably should be the basis for a whole other episode of To Boldly Watch. Maybe someday.
Yeah. And then Riker says, we cut to a scene with Riker saying to Geordi, Hey, Geordi, you gotta try this. It's called Virtual Boy. Huh?
Troy is eating one of her zillion foot tall sundaes that she's had in a zillion other episodes that you have never once seen her actually finish.
Yeah.
Riker asks if she's depressed. She denies it, but she then goes on to discuss the proper way to eat ice cream. It's like one of those 2000s ads where Jessica Biel was eating one of those ice creams on a stick in a seductive manner. Remember those?
Yeah.
Magnum ice cream bar ads?
Oh yeah. Oh my. Riker then says, wanna play a game?
And then they go to some little surprise party for Wesley, and Picard tests him on his Latin.
Of all things.
Ie onte ixpe ig Latin pe. Is that right, Matt?
Esye.
Okay. Yeah. When the game starts really catching on with the other members of the crew,
Mm-hmm.
and after the party, Data and Wesley are talking, and Data wants to know how things are going for him, and mentions his own prior experience with practical jokes.
Yeah.
And Wesley's like, yeah, I got people dealing that kind of shit with me, and Data says, well, you should get back at them. He says, I already did that. And then Data asks about the Sadie Hawkins dance. And says, yeah, I'm not going to go. I'm going to skip out on that. I said, is it because you don't know how to dance? Because your mom's really good at teaching people that. She taught me.
That's what he says. Yep.
And he's like, no, she tried. Trust me, no, I'm not doing it. Well, I could do it. You know, I could just imagine Data like doing the Charleston or something.
Yeah. Or the Carlton.
Yeah, yeah. Or the robot.
Yeah. Then Robin and Wesley meet each other after she helps him use the computer.
And it's sort of one of those classic meet cute moments that you see in a lot of sitcoms and rom-coms.
Oh, yeah.
It seems sort of out of place on Star Trek, though.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, on the bridge, Data's telling Riker that there's like a huge fight over resources, particularly the sensor grid,
Yeah.
because the time was shortened from 2 weeks to 1 week.
Uh-huh.
And Riker says, just flip a coin. And Data says, yeah, but we'd have to replicate that because, you know, the Federation's a socialist utopia and no one has coins anymore.
Yeah.
Of course, these days it's hard to find people with coins. I mean, most people use a debit card, or Apple Pay,
Uh-huh.
or Bitcoin.
BitConnect! Dr. Crusher asks for help with the tricorder from Data, but it turns out to be sabotage.
You say sabotage. I say sabotage.
From there, we cut to Picard and Wesley having tea, Earl Grey, hot, discussing his education.
And, you know, Picard wants to know shit. Wesley tells Picard he took his advice and went to talk to Boothby, who didn't remember him. Picard gets kind of annoyed and saddened by this, and then he says, until I told him about this and this. And then Wesley brings up the letters AF, which he apparently carved into a tree.
Yeah.
And then Picard said he failed organic chemistry because of AF.
Yeah. Free guesses as to why.
What do you think AF stood for?
As
Apple fritters? Atomic flatulence?
maybe.
I could see Picard failing organic chemistry because of atomic flatulence.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever it stands for, Picard mentions it's an old fling and suggests Wesley doesn't let a relationship basically get in the way of his studies.
And then Picard is called to sick bay.
Picard doesn't seem to be suspicious about Data being in sick bay.
Again, I'm going to talk about why this shouldn't make sense a little bit later.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. But then they go on to analyze Data to see what happened and basically come up with nothing.
Riker suggests that Geordi relax and stop worrying about Data. Things will work out on their own. Instead, you should try out this game. It's fun. It'll keep his mind off all his problems.
So, playing a game for a short while automatically makes you addicted, apparently?
I guess. So it's like heroin?
Could be like Tetris, I suppose, but that's a bit of a stretch.
Anyway, they cut to Wesley and Robin talking about the academy. This Wesley's equivalent of a first date? Kind of seems like it.
Yeah. And the game that everyone's playing isn't even really that great, honestly. Especially when you consider that they have a freaking holodeck.
We cut to Wesley and Robin talking about the academy. Yeah, this is Wesley attempting to flirt.
Yeah, it's like a first date, more or less. And meanwhile, everyone's still playing this game, and it's really not even that great, honestly.
Yeah, it's better than Words with Friends anyway.
I suppose.
I mean, let's have a whole episode of sort of reefer madness with video games.
Absolutely. Instead of drugs, it's just video games.
Then we cut to Dr. Crusher's room, and Wesley's there, they're talking, and then she's pressuring him to play the game. He says, no, I've got a date tonight. No, you should both come here, and we'll all play the game. And that just seems a little weird,
Yeah.
Not just the fact that it's his first date and bringing his mom there. That's more of like, to me at least anyway, like a fifth date thing.
Absolutely.
But all of them just sitting around playing the game, especially the way it's sort of portrayed later on in the episode where it's sort of known to trigger orgasms.
Yeah.
That just makes it really awkward.
Yeah, it makes it very weird. I mean, what is this freaking game? Farmville?
Yeah, because it does seem to work like that, where you have to bring in your friends in order to get new levels.
Yeah, maybe it works like that.
Well, it means it wants you get more points anyway for bringing your friends and family.
Ugh.
Either that or the game's a game produced by an MLM.
Well, that could be true as well. Never know. A lot of people are now high on this game. Next week it won't even be a fad. Just be like slap bracelets or the game Flappy Bird.
Meanwhile, Wesley and Robin try to reverse engineer the game to find out it's a form of mind control and that it affects the higher reasoning functions. So Wesley decides to narc out the game to Picard.
Yep.
And Picard just sort of says, oh, this is no big deal. It's not really affecting anyone's work output, so I don't give a fuck.
And Wesley just sort of leaves, feels relatively assured that Picard's going to take care of it, but there's a catch.
As soon as Wesley leaves the room, Picard puts the little thing on his head and starts playing.
Dun dun dun!
That's right, everyone on this ship is hooked, and they're all zombified. And they all want Wesley to play the game.
Yep.
So Wesley and Robin go back to Sick Beta, trying to fix Data because they realize he'd be the only person on the ship who would not be affected by it.
Robin and Wesley then proceed to fake like they are hooked on this game.
And the Enterprise arrives at its destination and they get a hail from this other ship. It's Atana, the woman that Riker was sleeping with on Risa. And she's ready to distribute these things all over the quadrant using the Enterprise. It's basically a drug runner's vessel.
Yeah.
And then Wesley runs into Nurse Ogawa in the turbo lift, and the game is literally inducing orgasms.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it sort of has turned from reefer madness to invasion of the body snatchers.
Yeah, more or less.
Wesley tries to run. He gets caught. He finds Robin. She's now zombified. And it's sort of implied to be against her will.
Yeah.
And now they're Now everyone on the ship is trying to clockwork Orange Wesley.
Yeah. Like, you must play this game.
And then Data comes to the rescue with his super duper flashlight.
Yep. A flashlight. Yep.
Remember, kids, say no to drugs, but even if you take drugs, you can just use a flashlight to cure yourself.
Yep.
If you don't believe me, just ask the guys from the doctors. Or Phil McGraw. He'll tell you the same thing.
After Data has pretty much saved the day there, Robin and Wesley then proceed to say their goodbyes. As Wesley is going back to school, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
and so is Robin.
No, Robin's already a lieutenant. She's graduated. She was supposed to be a regular recurring character on the show, but there's a reason for that didn't happen.
Ah,
I'm not going to get to that. Again, we're getting to that in a minute.
okay, I see.
Here's some weird things we noticed. And a couple that I didn't put in my notes because I forgot to mention it when we were supposed to in the outline. The first one, Robin Leffler, the character, with her little nervous quirks and her little book of magic rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of think the Leffler character is sort of a prototype for Ensign Tilly on Star Trek Discovery.
Okay.
In a lot of ways, both are sort of coded as not neurotypical.
Oh, I see.
You want to bring up the game itself, I know that.
Yes, I did.
But I noticed one thing before we even bring anything. I wanted to know, how would they know what would work on Geordi? He doesn't have an optic nerve, and that's going to be a big component to this game. His visor will allow him to see, doesn't allow him to see in the same spectrum.
Yeah, I feel like it really wouldn't work.
Yeah, it shouldn't work. And the other thing is, that thing is like an LCD light that goes directly into your eyeball, right?
Yeah, it's like almost like a laser out of an optical disc drive just being
So
shot into their eyes.
So, do you know what else in the Star Trek universe has that?
What?
A Borg.
Oh.
And this was after Best of Both Worlds. So wouldn't Picard get like PTSD flashbacks that would counteract the pleasure centers of stimulation?
Yeah, that would seem logical, yeah.
So, plus I can't see Picard playing a video game.
No.
He doesn't strike, I mean, yeah, he did occasionally use the holodeck, but mostly to play Dixon Hill detective novels.
Basically, yeah.
But no, having him play Game Boy, he's like the one person on the ship I couldn't see doing. I could even see Data playing the game, trying to learn about the human idea of pleasure, but just not ever really understanding it.
Exactly.
Data would want to be addicted to the game and just not be able to figure out why he can't be.
Exactly.
He would actually try to learn the experience of what addiction was like.
Ooh, that's a disturbing thought. But yeah.
I know, that sounds more like something they would do on the Orville.
Logistically speaking, how long would it take to replicate and distribute 1,000 to like 6,000 of those games?
The replication of the actual items themselves, let's see, the replicator can, assuming they were using every replicator on the ship, not long at all, it's just recruiting the people to do it would take time. And I think that would take a lot longer than
Just
they show in the episode, even with,
yeah.
even if you take into account Riker gives one to Troy, gives one to Geordi, and then they each give it to a couple, even assuming each person gives it to multiple people, I think it would take at least a day, maybe two, before
Yeah, it would take
it
a
gets
while.
everyone. I mean, we don't see any of the kids playing it. But
No.
there's also another small problem.
Yeah, what's that?
you are aware that there are actually like Vulcans on the Enterprise. You don't see them much, but I can't see the Vulcans taking up that game as a leisure activity.
Absolutely not.
I couldn't see Spock doing that. Tuvok occasionally played Calto on Voyager, but that was a much more logic-based game. It's like Vulcan chess.
Wasn't certainly.
This was that game, that we get at the H Mart with the cup and the ball and the stick.
Basically, it's just putting a disc into a freaking cone.
Atana herself. Okay, you'd think her species, which can develop that kind of game,
Yeah.
would be a major threat, right? And we'd see them again. Especially if they're high enough tech to do something like that. Or they'd try the same scheme again on another ship, right?
Right.
We never see her or her species again. This episode was made in the early 90s.
Yes.
You'd think if they're that dangerous, you would see them at least one or two more times. Even the Ferengi showed up as bad guys more than once.
Yeah. Definitely some problems there with that.
Yeah. Something else really strange about this episode?
Yeah, what's that?
You've seen at least a few episodes of the original series in Next Generation.
Yes.
It's not very often they do episodes where continuity really matters. You can more or less watch Next Generation and the original in any order.
Yeah, more or less, yes.
This episode is loaded to the brim with continuity stuff, which is odd considering this isn't, this isn't part of like one of their ongoing arcs. It's not a two-parter like Best of Both Worlds or Time Zero or something like that. No, it's a rinky-dink episode slammed between some really good episodes.
Yeah.
But here you get the bit with Chief O'Brien, which references Disaster,
Uh-huh.
and also helps set up Deep Space Nine. Because the whole mini arc with O'Brien is taking him from being a well-liked recurring background character to being almost a eighth regular. But the reason for that was the year before this episode was made, the end of Next Generation's 4th season,
Yeah.
Paramount executives said, we want a second Star Trek series on TV because Next Generation is finally proving to be a hit.
Yeah, they knew they had a hit.
Finally, after 3 years of trying to make it a hit, they finally made it a hit.
Yeah.
So they said, we want another Star Trek. But to make sure that this one has a better chance of taking off than Next Generation, we don't just want a guest star for one episode from our previous series. We want a regular from your show to be on Deep Space Nine from day one. And they did not want to part with any of the Big Seven.
Yeah. No, they didn't.
So, what they decided to do was really, really play up Chief O'Brien. And they introduced Ensign Rowe. Make their characters really big and make sure that people liked them. But then what happened was Michelle Forbes, who played Ensign Rowe, did not want to go on and be a weekly character. She was okay doing 8 or 9 episodes a year, but she didn't want to do...
Like every episode.
Right. So she decided not to do Deep Space Nine. Colin Meaney was like, well, I'll get better pay, I'll get insurance, I won't be able to do as many independent movies over in Dublin, but the pay's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll do it. But you have some other ones, like Leffler. She first appeared as a background character in Darmok, but that was actually to set this episode up.
Ooh, to said this episode.
Well, she was going to be in 2 or 3 other episodes, but the problem was they cast Ashley Judd,
Ah,
who basically went from being a B movie and B TV series actress to Paramount Pictures and a few other studios' It Girl in the course of about 3.5 months.
uh-huh.
So by the time they got to later in that season, an episode called The First Duty, which originally was going to have Leffler appear in it,
Okay.
Ashley Judd was no longer available because
Ooh.
she was doing a movie.
Ah,
Oddly enough, for Paramount.
how about that for some irony?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they reused Risa.
No.
Have you seen Captain's Holiday?
No, I don't think I've seen that yet.
Well, it's another good one. It's the first appearance of Vash, Picard's archaeologist girlfriend. That episode also introduced Risa, and it had Risa being the burial ground for a weapon from the future.
Ah,
There were also references to Risa in a few episodes after that. And then after the game, there was that Deep Space Nine episode with like this militant Luddite group wanting to destroy the weather control systems.
okay.
And then there was an episode of the prequel series Enterprise where I think it was Reed and Tucker go there and they get robbed
Okay.
and seduced. Meanwhile, Archer, has sort of a slow burning romance with this woman that he meets there, but she turns out to be a spy who's hunting
one
the
of those.
Zindi.
Okay.
Yeah, Risa is sort of depicted as an entire planet of Morocco.
Interesting.
You'd think with its reputation that it being an unaligned planet where Klingons, Ferengi, Romulans, Cardassians, pretty much anyone is free to travel,
Yeah.
that the Federation had like one of those loose lip sink ships and advised people not to have, one night stands while on Risa. Especially if you're a command officer who would have access to command codes.
Yeah, especially then.
So yeah, Riker should have known better. Star Trek has had a pretty long history with video games. Around the same time you had the letter writing campaign to get Star Trek back on the air in the early 70s, even back then, people were making fan games.
Well, not surprising, I guess.
And then in '83, around the time Wrath of Khan came out, there was a Kabashi Maru arcade game.
Oh.
After that, there was 92 or 93 was the 25th anniversary game that Interplay made.
Okay.
There was also like 4 months after this episode aired, there was an NES Star Trek game that was pretty good.
Alright.
There was one for the Game Boy, which I had, which was pretty good. I've heard the SNES version
Yeah.
was a lot better.
More than likely, yes.
The less said about the Deep Space Nine game, especially the Genesis version, the better off we are. I know there are some Star Trek fans out there who will disagree with me on this,
Yeah.
but I think Voyager had a better outcome in the video game content than it did as an actual show. But I really think it's been a really long time since there's been a good, really good
Yeah.
Star Trek video game. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe just that Star Trek was more at the height of its popularity, and they just wanted to ride with it and make it accessible to different forms of media. But I don't know. That or they could have just run out of ideas of what to
I
do.
actually think that it's, I think it's, to me, I think why Star Wars makes overall better video games than Star Trek, it's a matter of philosophy of both modern video games and Star Trek. The modern video game, actually, video games going back to almost as long as there have been video games, has been go to the place, shoot the thing, go on to the next thing, shoot that thing.
Yeah.
Whereas Star Trek has been go to the place, find out what the place is. If it's a bad thing, you might have to shoot it, but never ever enjoy it.
Yeah.
If it's a good thing, talk to it.
Yeah, I mean,
Understand it. Which is something I don't think a lot of video games do.
it makes me feel like they could have done maybe more of like RPGs or something.
Yeah, they've done some, there was also those FMV games. That
yes.
Simon & Schuster did, and some of those were really good.
Well, there
Because
you go.
unlike FMV games, the most ones they get like bad like soap opera actors.
Oh no.
Whereas the Star Trek one, they got like Star Trek Klingon. One of the main characters was Gowron.
Oh, okay.
Star Trek Borg had John Delancey in it as Q.
Nice.
The Deep Space Nine game, The Fallen, I think it was called, had almost the entire cast in it. In small roles, but you're playing an ensign.
Okay, fair enough.
But some of those were really good. Of course, then you had the Starfleet Academy game, which was bad. But again, it's been a long time since we've had a really good Star Trek game. I've heard good things about the one that just came out about a year or two ago, maybe 3 years ago. It was a VR game.
Yeah, I imagine that would be pretty cool. Yeah, I think I've heard about that. Yeah.
I've heard good things about that, but again, I think Star Wars adapts more to video games because it's Star Wars is, ooh, I'm the Jedi, gonna go over there and beat up Darth Maul. Now I've beaten up Darth Maul, now I'm gonna go beat up Vader.
Yeah, it's definitely a very different approach to how they would design the game. That's for sure.
I think it'd be really hard to develop a Star Trek game that was really true to the Star Trek philosophy. I mean, they tried with Star Trek Online, they really did.
Yeah.
But it became a combat game, and that's not what Star Trek is supposed to be.
No.
I mean, there was an attempt, I forget what it was called, but there was an attempt to do a Star Trek game that was like Civilization.
Okay, see, something like that could work.
Yeah, and it did. It was a great game. Like I said, I really liked the one for the NES, as goofy as it was.
Oh yeah, that one.
Which was a weird game, but fun.
Yeah, sure.
And there was the Klingon Academy one, which they actually got Academy Award winner Christopher Plummer to be in, reprising his role of General Chang.
Nice.
Yeah, if they could go back to doing something like that. Interplay's 25th anniversary game was absolutely brilliant. Why hasn't Steam re-released that?
Yeah, get on that, Steam.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Live long and prosper.
Peace and long life. 3 things I noticed during editing that were a little weird. 1, during the ice cream scene, they cut around the fact that Jonathan Frakes can't use chairs. 2, during the thing about Picard going to sick bay to see Data, we promised to talk more about that, and, well, if a tricorder was broken, Dr. Crusher would have called an engineer, not an ops officer, and shouldn't data be in the mechanic's grotto, not sickbay? The last thing was something I was going to bring up, but then I decided later in this season I was going to do an episode on the episode Hollow Pursuits, and I'd cover it then. If you liked this video, please hit like and subscribe. And if you want to see this channel grow, visit patreon.com/ParityErrorFilms.